Hello! How's it going, everybody? So nice to see everyone. Just got in, just finished getting everything going. Of course, the ad is about to start. It's always at the beginning, but that's fine. We always do ourselves a little catching up thing before we start anyway. Yeah. Hello, Z. Thank you for coming in. Oh boy. Um, the job that I interviewed for and had been given a job offer for decided not to go ahead and continue with me. One of my references didn't pan out correctly. I have a pretty good idea what it was about. And they decided that I was not a good fit. So I'm back at square one. Yay. um, I have one or two suggestions. Like, I've gotten like text messages from Indeed for potential remote work. I'm debating on whether or not I want to actually pursue those, though. Um, they seem a little shifty. Welcome back from the ads. I don't know if it was heard or not. I'm just going to repeat it. The job that I interviewed for didn't pan out. One of my references did not give them what they wanted to hear. They decided not to go ahead with me. Okay, so you did hear. Um, I'm a little annoyed, I'll put it mildly, because they had already offered me the position. So the fact that they rescinded kind of got under my skin and made me really unhappy and uncomfortable. I had a really crappy day because of that. Uh, yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, uh, potentially looking at remote work, but also feeling kind of anxious and not sure if I want to, just because some of the invitations have been a little shifty. That's not to say that there isn't like legitimate remote work. I just have been struggling to find good stuff. Um, there was one that was somewhat local. I would have had to commute down to do like uh monthly meetings or something. I ended up going back on the interview rather than go through with it just because I'd thought I had things worked out with the other one and I wasn't going to be able to do both. But now that that one didn't work out, I feel like maybe I can reach out again, but I don't know. I don't know. It was going to be like a kind of insurance salesperson type role, and I wasn't sure if that was going to work for me. Um, it doesn't seem like the kind of work that I would thrive at doing. There's just not a lot of options, is what I'm struggling with right now. Not a lot of options here. So I'm trying to figure out what to do next. Some of the things I was worried about coming up have been, let's call it, assuaged for the meantime. But it's kind of a short term solution to a long term problem that still needs to be handled. I've been told that the roommates are going to be here for at least the first week of September. I will be celebrating, if you will, my 1 year at the job that I'm currently working at. And I will also be celebrating my 10th year anniversary with my spouse. Lots of big things next month. So how's everybody else doing? What have you been up to? We've got the book ready. If nobody has anything they want to talk about or tell me, we can just jump straight into it. I have no problem doing that. But there isn't really anything else to really report. I do have a sourdough loaf that is. Sorry, just a second. That doesn't feel good. I'm getting some text annoyance. I keep dropping frames and it's not my internet. That's not, that doesn't make me feel good. Give me a second. Now I'm worried. Oh, that's not what I want. Go away. Okay. I think I understand. Anyway, I've completely lost track of what I was saying. It doesn't appear that anybody has much else to add. I'm happy to jump right into the book. Sourdough starter. That's what I was saying. I was starting to talk about the sourdough. I have a loaf of sourdough sitting in my proofing space downstairs. It's actually going to be ready to. Oh, that makes that's 27-ish minutes. And then I gotta technically turn the oven on because it's been fermenting for the past 2 hours. So I'll probably make a little tiny break while that's going on. But it looks really good and it smells really good and it feels really good and it doubled really big. I'm gonna bake it in the oven rather than do it in my bread machine because I'm starting to realize now that the dough that I cook in the bread machine isn't quite coming out the way that I want. The top of the dough tends to collapse, and I feel like the reason for that is 100% because the dough strength is not very good. So what I would probably have to do instead is to put it on dough cycle, let it proof, and then take it out, reshape it, proof it again, and then turn on the oven part of the bread maker to make it work the way I want it to work. Willing to do that, it's just an extra step. Right then. Let me just take a second to add a marker and switch categories, and we will go from there. Yeah, that looks good. Oh, I had my labels on from last time. Crap. Oh well. I also re-downloaded Spirit Lo-Fi. I'm going to see how well it does on the stream. So bear with me while I do that. It'll be just a sec. Always got to switch this stuff around. Bird, 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 bird. Oh, I should have done that beforehand. That's fine. I'm going to mute for just a second so that typing isn't so loud, and birds. These birds. I'm gonna have to close my damn window. I wonder if I can keep it cracked and it won't be too bad. How's that? Can you hear them? I mean, they're still there, but are they like annoyingly loud? Hello, Sai. Thank you for popping in. Birds being outside, being loud birds. Okay. No, we're going to keep it at 5. Of course, my watch has got to be loud. Jeez. Alrighty, when last we left off, we were on page 99. I'm going to start from there. I've never gotten ill from any fermented food or beverage, other than a few times from an excess of alcohol. When fermentation is done properly, with a clear understanding of the environment that is required, and some attention to details, it is perfectly safe. The vegetables need to be kept submerged, the fermenting alcohol needs to be protected from oxygen, the kombucha needs access to oxygen and some acidity, the yogurt needs to stay above body temperature, and ancestral ferments should generally not be wrapped tightly in plastic. Learn from others and do your research in books and online. Fermentation does not require a laboratory or sterile conditions. Ancient people developed all the major techniques without access to any modern amenities. People carry on ancestral fermentation traditions under all sorts of improvised conditions. Sure, mass production of fermented foods and beverages relies upon specialized tools and facilities, as all mass production does, but the underlying processes can be can all be done effectively and safely, and often better in simpler ways. What starts the fermentation? It's easy for people to imagine that you need to add something to start the fermentation. You can buy yeast in any supermarket, and with a simple internet search, you can find pure culture starters commercially available for many different kinds of fermentation. You can even buy a packet of starter to make sauerkraut. But that doesn't mean you need one. The vast majority of sauerkraut made in the world, including by the largest producers, do not require starter cultures because the spontaneous fermentation of cabbage and other vegetables is so reliably consistent and delicious. And all the bread ever made until 150 years ago, along with the finest breads made in the present day, has been fermented by the yeasts and bacteria found on wheat, rye, and other grains. Spontaneous fermentation, also known as wild fermentation, relies primarily upon organisms that are present on the food being fermented, and potentially on added botanical elements, on dedicated vessels or tools, on bare hands, and in the environment. In most cases, but not all, the ingredients must be uncooked for the microbes on them to remain viable. A notable example of an organism that can survive cooking is Basilicus subtilis, a common soil bacteria frequently present on plants and used in fermentation primarily with beans. As beans are heated, this bacteria forms spores that can survive boiling, though not the higher temperatures of pressure cooking. And these spores initiate the spontaneous fermentation of the cooked beans. Beyond spontaneous fermentation, a widespread strategy for introducing the organisms required into food for fermentation is to use a small amount of a previously fermented batch to start the next generation of the same fermentation. The vivid expression used to describe this in the English language literature is backslopping. Sourdough starters are perpetuated by backslopping, although they generally begin as a wild fermentation. They require a bit of time and cultivation to develop the vigor needed to rise a loaf of bread, so many people use and maintain their sourdough starters for long periods with regular backslopping, also known as feeding. I've been keeping mine going for 3 decades now, and I've encountered some starters that have been passed down through generations. Yogurt is typically perpetuated in this way, and almost any fermented food or beverage can be. Another form of starter is a SCOBY, S-C-O-B-Y. The most famous examples of SCOBYs are kombucha mothers and kefir grains. What characterizes these starters is that the microorganisms they comprise collectively grow into a macrosymbiosis form, bound by rubbery cellulose that is abundantly visible and tactile. There are just a handful of different types of SCOBYs. They require various degrees of ongoing care and feeding, and they display diversity even within each type of SCOBY with regard to appearance, size, temperature tolerance, rates of metabolism, and reproduction, and adaptability to different substrates and conditions. Personal experience with regard to SCOBYs is specifically with kombucha SCOBYs. I had found myself being reluctant to just throw the mats away, the SCOBY mats, the jelly circles that usually show up at the top of a jar that most people are really weird about. Honestly, you shouldn't be. It's not too unlike a mushroom fruiting on top of a log. The liquid beneath it is the part that needs to be kept alive, to be kept fed. The mat is just the fruiting body on top. But one of the things I found was a couple different recipes that you could use the SCOBY mats for. One of them being as a base for fruit leather. I still have every intention of trying that one of these days once I get a kombucha started up again. I also want to do a Jun, Jun, which is a green tea based fermented tea. Been wanting to do that for a while. And it also has the mat on top. I might post some pictures about those when the time comes. I'm really interested to experiment with those things and see what else I can do with them. And I'm pretty sure I could find someone locally who has either of those cultures going on. Maybe I could share some of my sourdough starter or my gingerbread. We'll see what happens when that comes. Speaking of which, I might bring down my my gingerbread culture. Show it after when I go up for putting the bread on in the oven. Let's continue. The surface of the ferment always presents special challenges. The vast majority of fermentation processes are anaerobic, and the way we create conditions conducive to the growth of the desired anaerobic organisms is to keep them submerged and protected from air. But there is always an edge where the liquid or submerged solids meet the air. This edge is the location of every ferment's greatest vulnerabilities. In alcoholic fermentation, the initial period of fermentation is so frenzied that bubbles of carbon dioxide are constantly being released at the surface, displacing the air. But as the fermentation slows, the surface is increasingly exposed to air, which enables aerobic bacteria called Acetobacter to grow and produce vinegar. Vinegar is tasty and has many uses in the kitchen, but it is not alcohol. In many fermentation processes, including those of vegetables, the air at the surface frequently gives rise to a phenomenon called calm yeast, spelled Kahm, which appears as a white or beige surface growth, sometimes web-like, sometimes textured in a wavy pattern. Calm yeast is totally harmless and can be easily removed. Although it is practically inevitable, calm yeast is generally not desirable, and I have heard many, many tales of people discarding ferments due to its presence. Much of the innovation in fermentation technology, from ancient times to the present, has been focused on protecting the surfaces of ferments from air. The classic Chinese crock design includes a moat around the mouth of the crock. This moat is filled with water, and the cover of the vessel sits inside the water-filled moat to prevent air, as well as flies, outside the crock from entering it, while still allowing for the escape of carbon dioxide produced as a byproduct of the fermentation. Today's water-filled plastic airlocks, widely used in alcohol fermentation, are based on the same general principles. There's a YouTuber that I watch who has I think she has a 20-year-old crock of fermented vegetables from China that she brought over with her. Watching her talk about this ferment and feeding it in videos and such, like, I would absolutely die to get a culture from that same jar and be able to start one in my own house. That would be so wonderful and thrilling because it looks like such an active culture. And I know I wouldn't be the first person to have asked her for that. I just think of it in my mind as like that would be such an interesting revenue stream, you know what I mean? Fine dining chefs have popularized the method of fermenting solid foods in vacuum-sealed plastic, totally protected from air contact. The bags blow up like pillows as the fermentation produces gas. To taste them, you must puncture the seal, and if further fermentation is desired, another bag is necessary. Variable capacity fermentation tanks are cylindrical tanks made of high-grade, acid-resistant stainless steel, with an airlock top that fits inside, sealed by an inflatable inner tube, like the ones inside bicycle tires. The top can seal at any depth, so it is adjustable to different sized batches, and as you gradually use a ferment, you can continue to protect its surface. Innovation can be very helpful indeed, but each technology creates its own challenges, such as evaporation in the water airlocks, plastic consumption in the vacuum-sealed bags, and expense. Many people improvise solutions, protecting the surface as best they can with available objects, as people have done for millennia. and removing common and harmless surface growths as they encounter it. Do not be intimidated. For people interested in experiencing fermentation firsthand, you can do it just as your ancestors did, wherever they were from in the world. Do not be afraid, do not be intimidated, do try to understand the environment you are aiming to create and do your best to create it. No book or video or class can do it for you. Once you try carrying out the process, be ready for it to become your teacher. Evolutionary transformations. The phenomenon of fermentation forces us to recognize that the cabbage is not simply a cabbage and the grape is not simply a grape. Each of them, like you and me, and every other multicellular life form, is a host, a conglomeration, a biodiverse multi-symbiosis of mutual existences. It is the inevitable presence of microorganisms upon all the plant, fungal, and animal food that we eat that gives rise to fermentation as a practice that is predictable and reliable. These microorganisms are present on all our food because they are present everywhere, and they have been since long before any of us multicellular organisms appeared on the scene. Bacteria and other single-cell prokaryotic organisms are the matrix of all life. They are our ancestors and our constant companions. The transformative action of microorganisms has been a driving force on planet Earth for billions of years. Origins are impossible to know fully and difficult to even imagine, so it is perhaps inevitable that the earliest emergence of life on Earth is so little understood. What little is known is inferred from rocks, the geological remains of earlier times. Much is deduced. The evolution of life is widely imagined to have been preceded by a period of chemical evolution, in which atoms and molecules grew into increasingly complex chemicals, giving rise to the compound structures that became fundamental building blocks of living systems such as amino acids and proteins. Others hypothesize that the first components of life may have arrived from space. The earliest life forms to emerge could not have required organic matter for food because they were the very first organic matter. Instead, they are presumed to have produced energy from inorganic compounds, gases released by the earth, and chemicals from rocks. For the first 2 billion years of life, simple single-cell prokaryotic organisms transformed the earth while evolving numerous metabolic pathways, including photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is by cyanobacteria produced oxygen as a byproduct, which accumulated in the atmosphere, killing off some of the life forms that preceded us and simultaneously creating the conditions that made aerobic life forms such as us possible. The oldest known fossils on Earth are stromatolites, sedimentary rocks formed by microbial mats of ancient bacteria, whose biofilms covered and bound together sand and other minerals and built up over time. An important feature that characterizes a prokaryotic cell is that it has no nucleus. Sorry, just a moment. Starting that sentence again. An important feature that characterizes a prokaryotic cell is that it has no nucleus, so its genes are free-floating in the cell and can be transferred, giving the cell a measure of genetic flexibility and great potential for rapid evolution. In contrast, the eukaryotic cells that make up multicellular forms all have their genetic material contained in a nucleus, where it is more fixed. Eukaryotic cells also possess specialized organelles such as mitochondria and chloroplasts. According to the prevailing view, prokaryotic begat eukaryotic, by means of endosymbiosis, wherein one prokaryote engulfed another, but rather than being digested, it remained alive, one inside the other, each digesting the other's byproducts in a mutually beneficial manner. Eventually, the arrangement became permanent, their reproduction became coordinated, they ceased to be separate entities, and they became an entirely new type of cell with extraordinary capabilities, eukaryotes, which have formed into plants, fungi, and all manner of animals. All along the divergent evolutionary paths taken by the descendants of those first eukaryotic cells, one constant has been the symbiotic presence of bacteria and other prokaryotes, which is what makes fermentation such an inevitable and irrepressible force. Various fungi and other microscopic eukaryotes are present as well. We humans play a critical role in creating the conditions to guide the fermentation in ways that we find to be desirable, but the organisms are there. Our ancestors devised their fermentation methods by observing the transformations that occurred without their specific intentional intervention. According to one fascinating hypothesis, whether intentional or not, external fermentation, as opposed to that occurring inside our bodies all the time, may have benefited our early hominid ancestors dramatically enough that it drove the evolutionary expansion of their brains. The development of external fermentation technology represents a plausible metabolic mechanism leading to brain expansion beginning at our ancestors' divergence from the Australopiths, proposes a team of biologists. They imagine a possible progression of this fermentation technology. To quote, "Forethought and mechanistic understanding are not requirements for the initial emergence of external fermentation. Reuse of a storage location could have promoted the stability of a microbial ecosystem conducive to fermentation. As new food items were brought back and added to the cache, they could have become inoculated with the microorganisms already present in the location or on the hominids themselves. External fermentation may have occurred for a protracted period of time in this manner, as an epiphenon of pre-existing adaptive habits of food transport and storage. Socially transmitted practices such as the reuse of the same storage locations, containers, or food processing tools would have further promoted the initiation of fermentation and the stability of ongoing ferments. Over time, additional facilitation may have come from culturally reinforced norms, such as the superstitions about where food must be stored or how long it must rest before being eaten. As brain size and cognitive capacity increased, understanding of the proximate causes and consequences of fermentation could have progressed in a gradual fashion. It is widely imagined that the most ancient of intentional ferments is the production of alcohol. Humanity's earliest experiences with alcohol have been the topic of considerable speculation, typically involving early people happening upon spontaneous fermentation of fruit or watered-down honey. This probably happened many times in disparate locations. Yet this scenario is hardly unique to humans, and no doubt it has happened to many other creatures as well. Let's consider our most proximate primate ancestors, who are thought to have subsisted on a fruit-heavy diet in tropical Africa. Ripe and sugary fruits inevitably ferment, producing a range of byproducts, including ethanol and lactic and acetic acids, sometimes quite rapidly in warm and humid environments. Most healthy, intact fruit is protected from fermentation as it develops and ripens, but fermentation can occur once fruit is fully ripe, especially if its skin is punctured or it is damaged by being partially eaten and falling to the ground. Our closest our closest contemporary evolutionary cousins, chimpanzees and gorillas, differ from most other primates in that they spend more time on the ground. As a result, chimpanzees and gorillas eat more fallen fruit that is bruised and frequently fermenting. The wafting aromas of alcohol and acids from the fermentation help them to find fruit and better feed themselves, and it simultaneously protects them because the alcohol and acids both serve to inhibit bacteria that could make them sick. Paleogenic, Paleogenetic research has identified a shift in primate digestion about 10 million years ago, around the time the evolutionary forebears that we share with chimps and gorillas moved out of the leafy canopy and onto the ground. A mutation occurred to the enzyme alcohol dehydrogenase, present in many animals earlier and since, which enabled this enzyme to metabolize ethanol. The persistence of this mutation in our lineage since that time suggests that it conferred some advantage and that these early hominid ancestors were ingesting at least some alcohol as part of the fruit they were eating. What was that? Having a really weird ad for Jif with Verdi's Requiem. Welcome back from the ads. Oh, goodness. Of course, the evolutionary path of alcohol extends much deeper into time than our hominid timeframe. How did a fungus come to produce ethanol anyway? Geneticists trying to understand the evolutionary history of yeast place the appearance of ethanol-producing varieties to about 120 million years ago, according to biologist Robert Dudley, roughly corresponding to the period when flowering plants first arose and began to produce fleshy and sugary fruits. Dudley points out that yeasts can metabolize sugar with much greater efficiency via respiration than via fermentation, and he asks, why then do yeast cells bother to produce alcohol at all? They could presumably get much more energy by fully oxidizing all available carbohydrate, but evolution has apparently preferred an alternate solution that, in a broader perspective, must yield greater long-term results. He concludes that the benefit yeast gets from producing alcohol is to help inhibit the growth of potential bacterial competitors in carbohydrate-rich environments such as ripe fruit. Then there is this question. How does the yeast find its way onto the fruit, as well as the bark, flowers, and other botanical matter where it is found? We are 30 seconds out. I'm going to do a quick pause while I go run upstairs. I will be right back. I'm going to put hopefully be right back screen. Yep, there we go. Problem is it going to loop or is it going to keep going? Oh boy. Well, let me just do this instead, just to be safe. I'll be back in a moment. All right. I'm actually really glad that I pulled away for just a second because a emergency vehicle just drove through. It was really loud, so I'm really glad. Okay. Right. Text off, going back to watching chat. I'm also really glad that I checked because the second rise on the bread, it actually started to press up against the plastic. So I had to really carefully peel it off because I didn't think to spray the inside of the plastic first. Thankfully, I didn't immediately deflate the whole thing. That would have absolutely crushed me. It seems like it looks pretty good though. And I'm going to, welcome back from snack. I'm going to take pictures of what the bread looks like once it's done. And as soon as it is done, I will bring some downstairs so I can show you all. I've gotten several texts, apparently. My phone has been going off the rails trying to tell me to do stuff. Does it not flip over? I thought it flipped over. Apparently not. I'll have to adjust that so it auto works. Nope, not that. Whatever. So the bread that I made today is a sourdough milk bread. Right, had some slightly fermented cucumbers that my mom makes. So are they fridge pickles then? Or does she do them on the counter? I love fridge pickles. I genuinely do. They're so good. So there's a very specific type of, basically fridge pickles. Okay, that's what I thought. There is a type of Japanese style bread. In English, it's known as, salt and dill is such a classic combination. That in English basically means milk bread. I'm going to really quickly see if I can find the name of the bread in Japanese. As soon as I finished the instructions I was going to pass on to my spouse. Spouse is going to put the bread into the oven for me. So that I don't have to run up again. Milk bread, Japanese. Hokkaido milk bread. Hokkaido is where it's from. The bread itself is called shokupan, shokupan in Romanji. It uses a specialized cooking technique called zangjiao or yuden. They typically do a milk scald in order for it to have a very specific flavor texture, and it helps keep the moisture in the bread all together. So this particular, because it's a sourdough, it kind of imitates that same technique by doing the sourdough sponge. So it's not the same, but it borrows from both to make a really great product. Oh, hang on a second. Looks like we just got a new guy. Oh my gosh. Look at him! Syrupy. Oh, I love that. Best enjoyed at the dinner table, perfect treat for when the weather is gloomy. Make sure the surface is clean and tidy. A spirit can help. The origins of syrupy are up for debate, but many spirit photographers believe that when a goopy slurps up one too many sugary treats, its normal viscous body thickens into a soft, spongy material. That's so cute! What's this one? Scrub and rinse your plates thoroughly. Make sure to clean up after dinner. Turn on a vinyl to help get in the flow. That one's a new one. Let me go switch over to that activity really quick. So it wants after dinner and a vinyl background sound. I always struggle to remember how to close the book. There we go. So time of day, evening, sounds, vinyl. What was the activity? Dishes. I think it was dishes. Yes, it was dishes. Good. Let's switch our little buddy out really quick. I think we'll switch to the teapot for now. I like the teapot. That was a mistake. Okay. Yes, it is so nice. It's really buttery and soft. It makes really excellent sandwich bread. Nope. That's not what I want. I want this one. Okay. Although the yeast known as Saccharomyces cerevisiae is among the most studied microbes in a laboratory setting, less is known about it and other yeasts in natural systems. Yeasts are widely distributed but generally present in low concentrations. Their dispersion seems to be due primarily to insects. Fruit flies and many other insects fly from fruit to fruit, spreading yeast and other microorganisms. Social wasps, such as yellow jackets and hornets, have proven to be of special importance to yeast ecology because their queens harbor yeast in their digestive tracts over the winter and introduce them to the spring brood, which carry them out to the environment and onto the flowers and fruits. The fermentation of ethanol results from a multifaceted interplay of different evolutionary partners, all of which were present long before humans appeared. Fruiting plants with sugars, the yeast that feast upon them, and wasps and other insects that spread the yeasts to and among the plants. Bacteria play a critical role too, since it was the presence of bacterial competitors inhibited by ethanol that made its production advantageous to yeast. And, of course, there are those other bacteria that metabolize alcohol, acetic acid producing acetobacter. Humans work with these biological realities and constraints in our diverse fermentation practices. Every fermentation is similarly a manifestation of biodiversity. This everyday process, which is casually part of everybody's life and easy to take for granted, illuminates deep truths about coexisting. I'm going to read that whole sentence again because I really blocked it. This everyday process, which is casually part of everybody's life and easy to take for granted, illuminates deep truths about coexistence and coevolution. The natural history I learned about in my youth, mostly from visiting the American Museum of Natural History in New York, revolved around dinosaurs and whales, epic creatures well deserving of their cult status. Yet, our emerging understanding must emphasize that even the most charismatic and emotionally relatable creatures could only ever exist by virtue of a complex web of relationships, which always brings us back to bacteria and other microorganisms. All fermentation derives from and illustrates the importance of microbes in all ecological systems. Even more fundamentally than dinosaurs and whales, they are a part of our natural history. And that is the end of the book. So I'm going to pause really quick so that we can switch. Come on. There we go. So that we can switch tasks. And then go from there. I already got the next book ready to go. Do you want to read his bio really quick on the back of the book? Sandor Ellis Katz is a fermentation revivalist, a self-taught experimentalist who lives in rural Tennessee. He is the author of 5 books: Wild Fermentation, The Revolution Will Not Be Microwaved, The Art of Fermentation, Fermentation as Metaphor, and his latest, Fermentation Journeys. The Art of Fermentation, which received a James Beard Award and has been widely translated, was selected by the New York Times as one of the 25 most influential cookbooks from the last 100 years. Sandor's books, along with the hundreds of fermentation workshops he has taught around the world, have helped to catalyze a broad revival of the fermentation arts. For more information, check out his website, wildfermentation.com. I really enjoyed this book. I didn't immediately know that it wasn't going to be a cookbook. I should have guessed based on the title, because it says A Natural History, that there wasn't going to be recipes in it. But when I first looked at the title, just fermentation, I love eating and talking about fermentations. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to get this book. It looks great. And then reading it, it was so fascinating. I really, truly enjoyed all of the stuff that I learned, some of which I didn't honestly know. A lot of it I did know, but the stuff I didn't know was really, really enriching and fascinating. I'll have more thoughts on that. I can't wait to write my review. I was able to get a copy of this book, an advanced reader copy, or an ARC, by using NetGalley. There's another one, I think it's called Edelweiss. One of the other books on the list is from Edelweiss. So if you're interested in reading advanced reader copies and then writing reviews, that's like the whole point of this service through NetGalley. I'm not being sponsored by NetGalley, and I wasn't paid to read this book or share it with any of you or write my reviews. That's part of the agreement that I have with NetGalley in order to get these ARC copy books. That's kind of redundant, ARC copies. In order to get these ARCs. But since we've already read them together, if you've been reading it along with me or listening to me read it, or you want to go back and watch the VOD from last week, or on my YouTube channel, please do. As a side note, with this book and any other books that I'm going to be reading on the streams, the thoughts and feelings and opinions are mine. They are not the authors. They're not the publishing companies. And I'm not getting, like I said, I'm not getting paid by them. If you want to support me, you can, buy a sub or use bits, or you can use any of my affiliate links to buy books through Thrift Books, through Biblio, through Bookshop. That would really help me. You can pre-order this book, And when it comes out, you can have your own copy. And I fully intend to pick this up when I get the opportunity because I really enjoyed it. And I'd love to share it with people and talk about it with other people once I'm able to get my local type book group started, because I love doing this with you, all of you, but I also really wouldn't mind having a book group in town with other word nerds that I can hang out with. All right. Let me switch our category on stream really quick. And we can switch over to our next book. It'll be just a second. I'm going to fully switch over to our friends while I put up, I mute myself for a second. Alright. Let's get her open. It's going to take just a second to load. Alright. Gender Rituals, Creating a Sacred Space for Your Body, Your Gender, and Your Becoming. Written by Eli Lawliet, PhD. Copyright 2026 by Eli Lawliet. All rights reserved. No portion of this book, except for brief review, may be reproduced, scanned, or distributed in any form or by any means without the written permission of the publisher. No part of this book may be used or reproduced in any manner for the purpose of training artificial intelligent technologies or systems. North Atlantic Books, Cochin Unceded Lone Land, 2526 Martin Luther King Jr. Way, Berkeley, California, 94704 USA. Cover design by Jasmine Hromyak. Book design by Happenstance Type-O-Rama. Gender Rituals, Creating a Sacred Space for Your Body, Your Gender, and Your Becoming is sponsored and published by North Atlantic Books, an educational nonprofit that collaborates with partners to develop cross-cultural perspectives, nurture holistic views of art, science, the humanities, and healing, and seed personal and global transformation by publishing works on the relationship of body, spirit, and nature. North Atlantic Books publications are distributed to the U.S. trade and internationally by Penguin Random House Publisher Services. For further information, visit their website at northatlanticbooks.com. The authorized representative in the EU for product safety and compliance is Ukompi Oyu, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce the rest of that, but they're in Estonia. For the transcestors who insisted I write this book now, you were right as always. Thank you. Acknowledgements. Nothing in this entire world happens in a vacuum, and no one writes a book alone. That said, I feel deeply that this book came from many sources, and that I was mostly a steward and a conduit for whatever needed to be transmitted. So first and foremost, my gratitude and acknowledgement to the transcestors who poured this book into and through me. Thank you for trusting me with these words. Next, my deepest acknowledgement and gratitude to the spirits who work with me, who hold me and protect me, who guide me and support me. My deepest acknowledgement to the land that I live on and the web of life and connection wherein I exist. My deepest gratitude to every life that is mingled with my own, and to the interlocking systems of support that hold me. Thank you for bringing me everything I needed to birth this work into the world. My love and gratitude to my beloveds, Junseo, Zephyr, Bonnie, Gabe, Zell, and Mars. Each of you is represented in various parts of this work, and each of you has provided me with irreplaceable support and care throughout the process of writing it. Bonnie, thank you for writing with me in the desert, for enjoying our Midwestern party comfort foods, and watching sunsets in the hot tub, and helping my body learn how to work hard and rest hard in equal measure. Thank you for being one of my most ardent supporters and biggest cheerleaders. I feel the force of your belief in me like the roots of a creosote. Thank you for loving me so much and letting me witness your life and becoming. Junsu, thank you for being the one I built a home with, and for your commitment to me, to us, to our lives. Thank you for all of your support, explicit and implicit, throughout this process. Thank you for teaching me yourself to make gluten-free fried chicken and biscuits and gravy and tiramisu. I know that this is just one of many ways you show your love to me, but it sure is a delicious one. Your support, mental, emotional, physical, and gastronomic, has fueled me and made it possible for me to put this into the world. I'm so grateful for you. Zephyr, I can't even begin, dude. There are no words for the level of support, care, and love you've given me. Our connection in this world and in others is beyond anything I could have ever imagined, and I don't know where my life would be without you. I have more to say here than I can possibly put into printed words. Listen with your spirit, though. I know you can hear me. Gabe, my best Judy, thank you for being my Victorian sister, for listening to my multi-part 40 plus minute voice notes, for being such a steady friend to me. I will never forget the full body relief I felt when we found one another again in the bay, and ever since that point, you have been one of the fixtures of my life. Thank you for witnessing me, for believing in me, for supporting me, and for riding the waves of my wild life with me. Thank you for meeting my multitudes with your own. Zell, I know that the Transcestors brought us together for a reason or for many reasons. I've learned so much from you, and your DNA is in this book as well, and not just where I've explicitly named you. I am so grateful to know you. I am so grateful for all that I have learned from you. And I'm so grateful that we're alive at the same time. What a gift you are to this world, and to the Transcestors, and to me. Mars, thank you for your stubborn insistence on me. Thank you for showing me that more and more and more is possible. Thank you for pushing me to greater and greater visibility. Thank you for being willing to tell me what I can do better, and for being willing to hear me when I do the same for you. Let me fix that. Thank you for letting me know, Sai. You are joy in my and a light in my life, but also in the lives of so many others. I am so grateful we met. My deepest gratitude to my editor, Jillian Hamill, who believed in me and my work enough to reach out, and who was such a helpful guide through the process of writing and publishing my first book. Having an editor who was aligned with me was crucial for this process. Thank you. My gratitude to Cassandra Snow, Charlie Claire Burgess, and Gabriel Mack for your support and encouragement, particularly at the early draft stages of my proposal. Each of you encouraged me at a critical junctures. This book would not be here today without your support and care. I am so grateful to Sphere plus Sundry, and especially Caitlin Kopak, who was willing to let me adapt her brilliant and effective bathing ritual for Chapter 4. The magic of S plus S is also deeply in the DNA of this book, and fueled many a writing session from the proposal all the way through the conclusion, and then the editing process as well. My thanks, love, and care to all of my clients. Every single person that I work with changes me on a deep soul level. Each of you has informed this book. My work with each of you informs all of the rest of you. Thank you, especially for every time you told me something didn't work for you. These moments help me become more nimble, more creative, more expansive in my offerings. Thank you. Thank you to all the teachers who have held me through the years. To my doula mentors, Erica Livingston and Laura Interlandi, you were the first to believe in me. You trained me and held me and saw me and anchored me. Both of you are written throughout this book, but also throughout my entire career. Thank you. I want to also thank Ilvamara Radziwiecki, Diana Rose Harper, Sarah Gottersteiner, Julia Inglis, Chana Bryant, and Lindsay Mack for the many ways each of you has informed my practice. There are so many more to thank and so much more gratitude to be offered. This is just a short sampling of the many human, non-human, and more than human beings who contributed in ways large and small to me, to this book, and to the process of our becoming. My gratitude is endless, but alas, my word count is not. Thank you to all those I have named and the many more I have not. I am so profoundly grateful to be alive in this time, to be writing, to be supported, to be able to witness the beauty and the struggle of these times. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Part 1. Ritual Basics. Introduction. If you are reading this, it was written for you. Regardless of how you identify, regardless of your spiritual practice or lack thereof, regardless of your relationship to or history with gender, this book has something in it for you. Even if you think that you are not trans enough, even if you think that you're not spiritual enough, even if you think that ritual is irrelevant to your experience, this book is for you because you are a human. Your body is made of the stuff of this earth. You are connected to thousands of gender-expansive people across the entirety of human history, and because you, dear reader, have a relationship to gender. It was March when we gathered on the beach, a group of 20 or so folks who were all coming to that place at that time to release names, pronouns, or outdated understandings of ourselves. My stupid watch. Oh my god. To release names, pronouns, or outdated understandings of ourselves that no longer served us. I designed the ritual for that exact time and place. The beach is, after all, a transitional place where many elements come together, mingle, and separate again. We gathered stones along the shore, then I passed out chalk that folks could use to write on the stones whatever they wished to release. As a group, we allowed ourselves to recollect all the beauty, all the good that we had experienced with that name, pronoun, or identity. Even if it no longer resonated, it had been with us through some significant part of our lives, and that was worth honoring. With that sense of gratitude and honor, we released those stones to the Pacific, knowing that the chalk would wash away in the waves. Newly unburdened, we each called in what we claimed instead. New names, new pronouns, new ways of being our current, whole, and authentic selves. The folks who attended that day were not of any uniform type or identity. Some released their stones gently, allowing the tides to lap them away. Others hurled their rocks as hard as they could. Some danced along the shoreline, laughed, cried, hugged each other. Regardless of why we were there and what we were releasing, each of us left that space changed. We were, each of us, changed by the power of ritual. Gender rituals are a powerful form of medicine. In the past, I've struggled to talk openly of rituals, their importance, their power, their potential, because I fear that I may sound hyperbolic. In my experience as a gender doula, I have designed and held many rituals for folks, sometimes writing the ritual for a client to do privately, sometimes officiating for a group or a community, and sometimes conducting the ritual in private for a single person, together in person, or through the magic of the internet. Regardless of whether the ritual was on the beach, in a hotel room, in the desert, or on a video call, it was beautiful, intense, powerful beyond words. In gender ritual, I have watched folks peel back layers of trauma. I have watched them find love or connection with their body after assuming those avenues were forever closed. I've watched folks resource themselves enough to enter the deep underworld journey of surgery or bring their community around them to affirm their new name and pronouns. To hold ritual space is to constantly tread in the liminal spaces, the space between breaths, the space between life, death, and rebirth, the space between our bodies when we hold one another, the underworld. But if that sounds like, well, a lot, please know that to engage in ritual and to conduct ritual on behalf of someone are two different skill sets. And my goal with this book is to provide you with rituals that are accessible and possible for you, no matter what you believe, no matter your level of experience. You are allowed and welcome to take this entire book and the rituals within it at your own pace. So what's your relationship to ritual? Before I tell you how I define ritual, take a moment to think about what ritual means to you. How do you define it? What rituals do you do and how often? Who taught you those rituals? What do they mean for you? Humans are creatures of ritual. We tend toward them in spite of ourselves, our reservations, our beliefs or lack thereof. Every culture has its own rituals, whether or not they are acknowledged as such. In modern Western contexts, we put a great deal of importance on certain rituals, but we don't acknowledge them as such. Our relationship with ritual is deeply impoverished, and this is reflected in our gender rituals. Take, for example, the recently instantiated ritual of the gender reveal party, a ritual around announcing the supposed sex of a baby to one's community. These rituals took hold, at least in part, because they are ripe for social media-ready documentation. The dramatic photos of the cake being cut, the smoke bombs being set off, the plane releasing a plume of blue or pink smoke, broadly derided by the trans community but cherished by a certain sect of expectant parents. These rituals have caused multiple deaths, wildfires, and other accidents across the country. There are a few gendered coming-of-age rituals, sex ed in health class, learning to use period products for the first time, but most of the rituals around adolescence depend on the community one happens to be born into. Unless you belong to a culture that performs something like a bar or bat mitzvah or a quinceañera, then adolescent gender rituals in the West are often far less rooted and more dependent on individual circumstances and family cultures. In adulthood, this fractured sense of gender ritual persists. Maybe for some, a bachelor or bachelorette party. Maybe for others, a coming out, a first pride parade, starting hormone replacement therapy, also known as HRT, or pursuing surgery. For some, daily routines such as shaving or applying makeup may feel like ritual or gender, and for others, those things may not even register as part of life. Maybe nothing I've said so far resonates with you, your life, your individual circumstances. This is what I mean when I say our relationship to gender rituals is deeply impoverished. And yet, gender impacts so much of our lives. Whether we broadly identify with our assigned gender or not, whether we perform our gender in ways that are expected or unexpected, many studies across academic disciplines have revealed that gender impacts us throughout our lives in a myriad of ways. Your perceived gender identity and performance constraints the types of jobs that you get, your pay at those jobs, how you're treated by strangers, and also how you're treated by supervisors, friends, and coworkers. Now we're gonna have a little break. let's pick back up where we left off. Gender, both the performance and the identity, can foreclose certain possibilities for us and open our worlds to others. It seems strange that something so impactful across personal, professional, emotional, mental, and spiritual realms would be largely ignored in ritual. What is a ritual? There are many ways to define a ritual, but my definition is this: some intentional set of actions done for a specific purpose. This is a wildly broad definition, but I find its broadness to be helpful because ritual can be almost anything. A ritual can take place wherever it needs to. It can last as long as it needs to, and it can be either planned or intuitive. A ritual can be done alone or with another person or with an entire community. What separates ritual from any other action is the intention and the purpose. I can light a candle because I want the room to smell nice, or because I want the ambience of the flickering light. Neither of these is necessarily a ritual. But if I light a candle with a specific intention to support a carefully chosen purpose, that is, or could be, a ritual in itself or an action taken in service of a larger ritual. It is the intention and purposefulness with which the act is performed that transforms it from the mundane to sacred. We all engage with ritual in one way or another. Perhaps you have an annual ritual for your birthday, or for a holiday such as Christmas or summer solstice. Perhaps your rituals are brushing your teeth at night or checking in with your mom once a week. Or perhaps you engage in more organized rituals as part of your cultural, religious, or spiritual practices. Regardless, ritual allows us to mark and track time. It allows us to locate ourselves in time as well, to see our growth, to connect to ourselves, our world, our community. Sometimes ritual creates a container within which we can do our deepest work, heal trauma, shift ancestral wounds. With ritual, you can connect your whole self, mind, body, spirit, to the earth, to community, or to a higher power. Ritual often transcends human differences and allows us to connect with some deeper aspect of ourselves and therefore some deeper aspect of one another. The power of ritual has made it a target for destruction during colonialization and the creation of a white supremacist state. Ritual is a threat to the colonizer and the oppressor, and therefore existing ritual must be either destroyed or assimilated into the culture of the colonizer. Across the colonization process of many lands and people, when assimilation failed, colonizers simply did their damnedest to destroy the existing cultural celebrations and rites. Ritual is a powerful aspect of culture. If it weren't, it wouldn't need to be a target in the process of colonialization and genocide. Even when attempts are made to eradicate the culture and spiritual rituals of a group, versions of those rituals will often live on. Unless you manage to completely annihilate an entire group of people, ritual will find ways to continue. When a group of people is under attack, their rituals become even more vital, even more treasured. After all, a group of people without rituals are just a collection of humans. Ritual binds us together. The lack of rituals in modern Western culture. I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and raised in the southwest corner of Missouri. My paternal side came to America from Ireland 4 generations before I was born. My maternal side came to America via Canada, and before that, England in the 19th century. which is all to say that my personal context is very much white American. My family was conservative Christian, and thus I grew up with a set of rituals that did not resonate with me. I began questioning Christianity when I was a young child. While I enjoyed certain aspects of evangelical ritual, the whole enterprise didn't suit me. By the time I was 10 years old, I was just going through the motions to appease my family. Yet, as an agnostic teen and later an ardent atheist, I felt the lack of ritual in my culture. The culturally acceptable rituals that existed all seemed to be organized around spending money. Although Jesus had been the reason for the holiday season in my family, several years of working retail around the holidays made it quite clear who the season was really for. In American culture, at least in Missouri, the most exciting ritual was getting your driver's license, then becoming old enough to legally drink. After age 21, what was there? Maybe marriage if you waited that long, maybe baby showers, maybe, depending on your denomination, church rituals, maybe graduation from college. Moving to Los Angeles taught me quite a lot about ritual. My first job was as a live-in cook for a Jewish family in the San Fernando Valley. I learned how to cook for Passover and prepare for Shabbat as I participated in the rituals of a completely different culture. I was still an atheist at the time, and I met quite a few Jewish atheists. I'm culturally Jewish, they would tell me, but I don't believe in God. Sorry. This boggled my mind as a person who was raised evangelical. I never knew that cultural rituals could still be separated from their religious background, or that one could participate as a form of social belonging instead of worship. Witnessing it changed something in me because for the first time I could separate spiritual ritual from organized religion. A few years later, when I felt spirituality calling to me, I was lost. I wasn't going to commit to an organized religion. I had way too much religious trauma for that. While a lot of what resonated with me landed in the realm of pagan belief systems, most of them were blatantly stealing ideas from indigenous or Asian cultures, or were thinly veiled versions of white supremacy, or were far too organized for my comfort. Eventually, in my desperation to root into something that didn't compromise my values or activate my trauma, I asked myself, what do you know to be true? The answer that I eventually arrived on was transness and queerness. Thus began my ongoing journey of creating my own spiritual practice rooted in what I called the sacred knowledge of transness. Some of the rituals of this spirituality are very common. Cutting or growing your hair into something that feels daring or unexpected, taking an HRT shot or pill, purging your wardrobe of clothes that no longer resonate with you, sacrificing parts of your body on the altar of your authentic embodiment, taking a new name, a new pronouns, but are not always. Sorry, that whole sentence read really weird. Some of the rituals are very common, listing of all the rituals, but are not always considered rituals. Okay. They should be. As I moved through my own healing path, I received my calling to become a gender doula. In this role, I have heard countless folks say, in one way or another, this feels so monumentous, but the people around me are treating it like it's no big deal. I know they want to be supportive, and I don't want people to question me or be mean about it, but it is a big deal. I want someone to treat it like a big deal. This, to me, represents the hunger for ritual. Having a loved one act like you don't understand the gravity of gender explanation or transition can be deeply harmful and painful. But when everyone around you more or less just says, you're transitioning, that's fine, it can leave you feeling empty. The fact is, we're all hungry for ritual. Without ritual, we just slide from one part of life to the next. Without ritual, it's easy to lose the thread on what is important, what matters, that we matter, that our paths matter. Ritual isn't about making a big deal over every little thing, though honestly, almost every aspect of transition and transness are big deals. Rather, it's about honoring the importance of something in our lives. Through ritual, transition can be honored and celebrated for the sacred process that it is in a way that is life affirming, identity affirming, and crucially, community affirming. In the years since I began my own spiritual journey, moving along the path of transness as a site of sacred knowledge, I have come back to the ritual again and again. I have developed rituals to hold myself through particularly potent portals, and I have also used the skills I've developed to hold others. Through ritual, I have helped folks move through the fear and anxiety that so often comes before a surgery, no matter how hard they fought to obtain it. Through ritual, I've helped folks make their bodies into their allies for the journey of HRT. I have helped folks and myself reclaim sexuality, shed old identities, and welcome in new ones, integrate new experiences, process out old trauma. Ritual is potent, in my opinion, regardless of your belief system. Ritual is a technology available to all humans and to other animals as well. Famously, elephants, dolphins, crows, magpies, and others display ritual behaviors. They there are likely countless rituals in the animal world that humans simply don't have the knowledge or the tools to properly observe. Ritual is ancient and primal, something that we return to again and again, and that we see evidence of for across time and space wherever life exists. There are a few common objections to performing ritual. One is, what if I'm not spiritual? You may have guessed this already, but there's no need to be spiritual to engage with ritual. Much like the folks I met who were culturally but not spiritually Jewish, ritual is available to all. Singing happy birthday can be a ritual, as can preparing for a date by washing your body, fixing your hair, and applying products to your skin. Even if you are not spiritual, I guarantee you already engage in ritual. And each of the rituals in this book can be customized in whatever way makes sense to you. Another common concern is that doing ritual will feel weird or awkward. It may indeed. Even some of our most culturally accepted rituals, like marriage ceremonies, can feel weird or awkward. Feeling weird or awkward about a ritual will not make it less effective, and it does not indicate that you're doing it wrong. Things feel normal and natural when we have experience doing them. If doing ritual feels weird, you want to make it feel natural. You probably just need to do more ritual. Group ritual versus private ritual. When we gathered together on the beach to release the names, pronouns, and identities that no longer served us, part of the magic was in the doing of the thing together. Coming together with other humans, breathing together, singing together, dancing together, these actions help us recognize that we are not singular beings on isolated paths, but parts of a living whole, parts of a web of energy and connection. Doing ritual with other people allows us to access a specific state of mind where we can maintain our own specificity while also recognizing the depth and breadth of our connection. Yet solitary ritual can be powerful as well. The quiet of a ritual without other humans present can help you to be clear on and in your own energy. It can allow you to cultivate the courage that you need to move through a threshold moment, like your first HRT shot or calling in a new name for the first time. Solitary ritual can help you develop and tend to your own unique connection to the earth, to your spiritual root, to your ancestors, or to your trans ancestors, also known as transcestors, see chapter 12. It's not that ritual in community is better and ritual in solitude is worse. Rather, In the hyper-individualistic culture of the Western world built on the foundation of white supremacy, it can be easy to default to solitary ritual and miss the benefits of group ritual. I encourage you to actively avoid this. While many of us struggle with community, finding it, maintaining it, and managing conflict within it, humans evolved to be communal creatures. Rituals as simple and timeless as sharing a meal benefit from human connection. Yet, ritual, especially gender ritual with other humans, may not be available to you for a variety of reasons. Many of the rituals that we engage in around gender exploration and transition are intensely private, and we may not feel safe sharing that level of depth within community. For some of us, the people we would choose to witness us may live far away. For others, the logistics of public ritual may be prohibitive. In this moment in time, for many folks, a public ritual may not feel physically safe due to the anti trans violence. And finally, we may not have people in our lives that we trust to hold the fullness of our identities. For the purpose of accessibility, I have made most of these rituals amendable to solitude and have kept rituals that assume community involvement to a minimum. But that doesn't mean that you can't or shouldn't use these rituals in community. We must all seek the balance between the vulnerability and challenge of community space and the safety and predictability of solitary practice. Both are good, and the exact balance will depend on you and your needs. There's nothing wrong with keeping the most vulnerable version of a ritual to yourself and creating a less vulnerable version to be done in community. What this book contains and how to use it. This book is meant to contain everything that you need to do. You need to do gender rituals. This means that if you're reading it and you've never done a single ritual before, or at least have never done one on purpose, this book should have all the basic knowledge and steps you need to perform gender rituals. If you are a seasoned ritualist, there may be sections that are review to you. Still, I recommend at least skimming the first part of the book, which covers when to use rituals, how to customize them, and some foundational skills that will be helpful in your journey with ritual work. In Chapter 2, I attend to the temporal aspects of choosing when to do ritual, how often to engage in a specific ritual, and how to create boundaried containers of time to support consistency in your ritual practice. Frequently, folks believe that a ritual is a sort of big one and done ceremony. While this is certainly one type of ritual and the best type of ritual for specific applications, it is not the best form for all needs. When we need to shift a deeply ingrained pattern, smaller, more doable, more consistent rituals can be key. Chapter 3 covers how to customize a ritual. This is an important chapter because even though I have worked very hard on rituals included in this volume, there may be elements of them that do not resonate with you. This section gives all the information you need to compose your own rituals, to write them out and customize them with ritual elements that resonate with you. Crucially, this section discusses cultural appropriation and choosing ritual elements that are appropriate to your own background and resonances. This section also covers making ritual doable for you, especially and how, This section also covers making ritual doable for you specifically and how to leave behind that which doesn't work for you. We will cover choosing a proper venue for a ritual, when to do private ritual versus community ritual, and when to involve an officiant or space holder in a ritual. I provide questions that will hopefully create the space for you to discern for yourself how you want to customize the ritual. In chapters 4 and 5, we get into the foundational skills needed to engage with the rituals in this book. This section is separated into 2 chapters because some of those foundational skills are best used daily, or at least regularly, while the rest are more centered around occasional rituals. In Chapter 4, we cover cleansing, grounding, and shielding. I offer options for engaging with these skills in various ways and ultimately suggest working with these skills for daily energetic hygiene, then doing larger or more intricate versions of these skills when desired. In the Chapter 5, we cover opening and closing a space, working with intuition, building and tending an altar, creating sigils and petitions, working with tarot and oracle cards, and journaling or otherwise recording rituals or other intense experiences. Even if you have never created an altar or pulled a card, this section will help you find your ways into whatever practices will be supportive of the rituals you wish to choose. I want to take a brief sidestep with this because I find this discussion really important, and I really applaud the author for taking the time to address some of these things. When they brought up tarot or oracle cards, for me specifically, that's not something that I use in my own practice for a few reasons, and I've talked about them during streams before. So I'm putting the book down for just a second so that I can talk about them again, because they're kind of important to me and I want to talk about them again. I feel, based on the research I've done and the histories I've studied, that I don't necessarily feel comfortable using tarot cards at all. I know that tarot cards themselves existed prior to their divinatory uses, but the way I see the divinatory uses of tarot are greatly dependent on indigenous cultures, specifically Romani culture and Jewish culture. They use these cards very intentionally to work with their gods and their spirits and their pantheon of beliefs. And after I learned that, after I started reading and discussing these things with the people who practice these skills, I found myself wanting to do them less and less. I find that the art on tarot cards is beautiful and significant. And I know that tarot specifically, at least to me, it seems like the author is doing culty things. I can see how that might be perceived that way, and I think that's worth talking about too. It can seem cultish to someone who may have only observed like the great big three religions, because anything that isn't Christianity or Muslim or Jewish faith is considered cultish, is considered pagan in a way. The term paganism comes from common folk, common people, unpracticed people, the people who practiced things that were not directly attached to God in whatever version of that God there is. So, but I think it was also mentioned in all of the things that the author said, that ritual doesn't have to be attached to religion. Ritual is a practice, an active choice that can, well, I personally consider American Christianity not Christian. That's valid too. That's 100% valid too. But I think the point that is being said by the author specifically is that ritual doesn't have to be attached to religion. It can be attached to a daily practice, in the same way that like Buddhism has a lot of rituals. The Buddha themselves is a higher power for Buddhists. But Buddhism as a spiritual practice, like Zen Buddhism, it's really all about movement and intentional living and meditation and treating the world with the respect and kindness that it deserves. And a lot of those Eastern spiritual practices have been culturally appropriated by people who have no business appropriating them. And there are ways to use these skills without directly pulling from cultures that people don't belong to. And that's another thing that gets talked about a lot in yoga. Yoga is a practice that was introduced through like a world fair, if I remember correctly. And then it became this big, huge craze. And a lot of the things that Western culture uses yoga for is mostly for the movement parts. But there's so much more to yoga itself that people don't consider or take into account when they're doing all of these movements and stretches. There's so much more spiritual, religious rituals, all of these different things, because yoga comes from the Ayurvedic tradition. People in India practice this as part of their spiritual practice, and Western culture has then appropriated only a fraction of it, but then they use it in such a way that is completely unaligned. The same way people will use tarot. They don't take into consideration all of the moving parts that make it important culturally to a group of people that they don't know, that they've never lived in, that they've never experienced. It's one thing to be introduced and invited to these things, but it's another to just borrow them and make them yours and not give them the respect that they deserve, to respect all of the people who put these practices into fruition, who built them, who spread them among their own people or kept them alive. Western folks don't really take that into consideration. One of the things I see especially that bothers me is the fact that Indigenous American practices have started to leave the Western United States, the Western culture, the Western American United States culturally, left the States, left the US, and started to be picked up by all different places in the world. Like, I'll see people in Australia and Eastern Europe who are using white sage bundles and doing Western versions of smudging and using like dream catchers and all of this other crap that doesn't even belong there. It doesn't make sense to even use these objects that way. Honestly, could say the same thing about paganism. Oh, sigh. I feel like you and I could have very long conversations specifically about this, because I practice a form of paganism. It is a much more individualistic form of paganism that I have built through study and practice and observation and learning. I am so careful about what I practice and how and why. It's part of the reason that I was so interested in this book specifically, because I feel like it's very adjacent to what I already practice, and I feel like I could learn a lot from this book. And I think that there's a way to practice ritual in a secular way also. I have spent a lot of time in the atheo-pagan community. The word is I forget the actual term for it, but it's a compound word using atheism and paganism, and what it really comes down to at the end of it is that these people practice natural observances and ritual built around whimsy rather than around pagan gods, to invite that sense of elevated consciousness and observation of the earth and the patterns of the sun, the weather, the ocean, all of these different things. Weave it into a way that is appropriate and universal and doesn't have to necessarily belong to any one group of people. One of the things that I really admire about it specifically is that it is so customizable to your life and your circumstances, and not in a Wiccan eclectic sort of way where they just grab a bunch of stuff and they throw it in a pot and that's what it is, but more like, rather than use rituals involving water and rain in the desert, which maybe gets rain an eighth of the time than somewhere on like the west coast of the United States that is getting rain pretty regularly. That's kind of the natural state of weather there. And similarly, that you wouldn't use something that uses like hurricanes and wind and tornadoes in a place that doesn't have that type of natural phenomenon that happens. True paganism, at least how I see it, is personification of natural phenomena. Yes, the interaction with it, the observation of it. Nature gods, they don't necessarily have to belong to any one pantheon. You can find nature gods in every pantheon. But if you looked at it more from a avatar style state, and I'm not talking blue people or airbenders, I'm talking about, this is a model. There is a masculine model, there is a feminine model, there is a model that is androgynous, there are models that specifically take host as animals because these animals are directly related to certain elemental states. All of these different things, they don't necessarily have to be necessarily prescribed to gender. That's one of the things that I'm excited to look at in this book, because of the fact that transness is such a division of gender being assigned necessarily. What does gender mean? What does gender personify? How can we remove these assumed things? Why does blue have to be masculine and pink have to be feminine? When we look at the reasons why those even exist historically, when I learned about them, it gave me the ick in the biggest way. And also, like with me specifically as a child, I was so derisive about pink everything because I didn't want to be associated with feminism and femininity. I didn't want people to give me pink things because I didn't feel like I was girly, I wasn't feminine. And it made me uncomfortable when they were given to me, or they were assumed about me, or they were forced on me. And it did. So being able to hear the pagan deities were in our gender. Yeah. And there's reasons for that. And looking back, when we get away from what we associate, because language is one. Yes, 100% it is. Especially gendered language forms. A lot of Latin languages are very gendered. I know that Eastern European languages are also very gendered. In fact, Slavic and Eastern and Scandinavian are so gendered that the names, the last names immediately attach to the person. Like the word cat to me is female. I don't know why. Probably some direct corollary with your native language and with people being, like, types of people being associated with cats. Like women like cats and men like dogs. So dogs are male and cats are female. Things like that. These what's the word I want to use? Arbitrary. They're arbitrary. We apply those meanings onto those things, or sometimes culturally those meanings are applied. I had talked about this a couple weeks ago when we were talking specifically about fermentation in food and cooking. That, yes, but also the word itself feels like that. Agile. Yes! Damn agile. Welcome back from the ads. Talking about food and cooking food and serving food, like Twitch as usual trying to sell Turbo, yeah. It is so common for cooking to be given to women as their role. Like, that's what you do. You make the food. You take care of the babies and you make the food. But then you look at professional cooking, and it is such a male-dominated space. Teaching is such a male-dominated space. Professional spaces become so fewer safe spaces for female-identifying people. And it's something that's very obviously observable in Western society. And why? Teachers in other, teaching. A lot of teachers are usually male teachers. Like, you might see teaching of younger people being more associated with women because mothers and children, etc. But as soon as you get to like a adolescent or an older generation of people, that's when you'll see like professors, and professors are always men. There's that dichotomy and that arbitrary attachment of what it means to be masculine or feminine and the roles that are expected and the things you're allowed to do and allowed to be and allowed to feel. Makeup is feminine. If men use makeup, then they're feminine, and that's wrong. Being feminine is wrong when you're a man. Likewise, you're a woman, you should have long, luxurious hair, and you should wear dresses, and you should behave in a certain way. If you cut your hair and you wear pants and you do sports like football and basketball and soccer and all of these things, then obviously you want to be a boy, and you can't be that because you're a girl. Things like that. These silly things that we assign silly meaning to. And the same could be said about ritual. Like, a lot of rituals in Christianity specifically are adopted by indigenous practices. Christianity was a colonizing culture. They would go into spaces, they would convert everybody that they could. They would execute the ones that they couldn't they couldn't convert. And in order to make these skills easily adoptable, these rituals easily adoptable, they would just rewrite them. They would reapply things to them and basically steal away all of the indigenous meaning to these things and replace them with Christian meanings instead. And it's unfortunate because some of those things lose their intended meaning. They don't make sense in a Christian format. You can see that with things like Easter. Specifically, the Christian parts of Easter are the fact that Jesus dies and is resurrected and all of this stuff. But then you look at the ritual practices, and they're based around eggs and rabbits and springtime and all of these things that are directly related to the rebirth of the land and the fact that animals become more fertile and start to have their broods, and fruits start to grow and plants start to come alive again after being dormant all winter, it doesn't make sense in the same way. Like, biblically, it doesn't align the same way. And these rituals were taken and borrowed and translated, and that's how, yes, both have rebirth in common, if you can call it that. I wouldn't necessarily say that resurrection is the same thing as being reborn. It is the cessation of death. Rejuvenation and plant growth and the birth of new brood isn't necessarily the same, I think, personally. They're easy to link up because of the similarities, but they're not entirely one for one, if that makes sense. The point being that all of these meanings were taken from other things and then applied because, yeah, they could be linked together. Could argue that trees don't die and resurrect. Yeah, in a lot of cases with trees, specifically deciduous trees, they go dormant. That's why they lose their leaves. They are no longer getting the nutrients that they need to continue to thrive. So they go into dormancy, and their genetic offspring go into dormancy and wait to be rejuvenated by sunlight and rain and other animals, if that helps move their seed and their plant. Dormancy isn't the same as death either. But resurrection is the recreation of life from death versus dormancy and coming back out of dormancy to take back the nutrients and regrow and revive. If you cut down a tree, the tree that was cut down is dead. The stump is still alive, and it can grow new branches, but it'll never be able to regrow that entire huge organic tree. That part is gone. That part is dead. That tree can't be revived. Certain plants propagate through water, so in a way, if you cut them, they can regrow their root system. But it will take a long time for that root system to be anywhere near as strong as it was when it grew from seed and had that extra time to germinate and grow and have all of the parts it needed to make this large root structure. There's corollaries. Obviously there's corollaries, but it's not a one-to-one. And it's worth observing. Like, I'm not trying to take away the meaning and the importance of rituals for a specific cultural community of people. For me, it's more of a remembrance of it doesn't have to be only that. It can, in fact, be separate and different and unique and new from that. It doesn't have to borrow. It doesn't have to necessarily even reclaim. It can be something new. It can be something experienced for the first time. And isn't that just wonderful? And I think we could all benefit from that. And like the author was saying, there's so few rituals in Western society over really important life events and experiences, unless you're directly related to a cultural framework. The melting pot of Western culture strips away and removes these things because everybody wants to be the same. Everybody wants to be universally the same. They only want to be so different as to be considered important enough to get recognition and acknowledgement. But if you get too much recognition and acknowledgement, then it becomes alienating all by itself in different ways, either by groups of people or by the person themselves. Everybody wants to be the same. But when you look at a cultural practice of specific rituals, like the author mentioned with quinceañeras, which are specifically Latin American, and with certain milestone observations with age groups. Like, I know a lot of native cultures tend to do that. With Jewish people specifically, bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs, that movement from being a child into being an adult, or a budding adult, is a thing that, yes, I will happily express that. These things are very specifically culturally tied to a group of people, and not something that is widely observed by Western society. Western society, it's such a, I feel like I will be doing an injustice by defining what it means to be in a Western society. Let me do myself a little bit of a dictionary definition and kind of build off of that in my way of understanding it anyway. Westernization, that's probably a good one. The process of adopting or influencing others to adopt ideas and practice characteristic of Northern Europe and North America, specifically. It is directly associated with colonization and the spread of a kind of universalism. I feel like Britain is the worst culprit of that. Historically, the British often colonized other places and then immediately stripped those areas of their specific culture. Christianity is a similar thing. Christianity as a westernization, as a colonization practice. Christianity itself isn't a white Western thing. It is practiced by I hesitate to say Arabic, but it is that area of the world. What is a better word for that area of the world? I've heard some people, let me check with that too. There's another explanation. Westernization is what happens when Eastern countries adopt cultures and practice from Europe, or it's showing a bunch of different things. Middle Eastern. There we go. Thank you, Sai. Christianity is practiced by Middle Eastern people. That was how it, like, Middle Eastern people are the people who brought Christianity into being. And when it moved in, well, it came from the Middle East. Yes, it came from the Middle East, but then it was adopted by colonizing countries and kind of absorbed into colonizing countries because it became the root religion of so many Western world, which is then the Roman Empire. Like Italy and the Roman Empire building from Christianity. Exactly. It's like, I won't claim to be a world history academic. There are definitely people who could do a better job talking about it than I could. When I think of Western versus Eastern, I think very specifically this division of space of everything west of the Middle East versus everything east of the Middle East. The Middle East being like this central place where all of these big three religions came from. Abrahamic religion and Muslim religion and Jewish specifically, like all of that came from the same central core space and spread outward. And if you look at Eastern religion, you look at like Shinto versus Buddhism and those types of things. So the split of the Roman Empire area. Yeah, basically. All of those big areas were intrinsically tied to religion that strongly supported proselytization. So taking their practices and enforcing them and encouraging them onto other peoples. So it directly linked together this spread of proselytization and this spread of colonization. So that's not to say that the eastern areas of the world didn't do their own colonization, didn't do their own spread of religion. But as someone who is in an area that is westernized culture, I don't spend as much time studying that the same way as I do with westernized culture. And I feel personally, there's a bias there, obviously. It becomes, what have I been exposed to? What have I learned in the course of my life? And I see a lot, especially in Western culture, in westernization, in proselytization and colonization, the act of stripping away meaning that is not indigenous to its space, its area, and either adopting these things through cultural appropriation or just annihilation of those things by trying to take out anybody who practiced those ways of living. It is especially obvious in the United States because of the genocidal history that our country has been founded on. So many people, indigenous people to this area, were just wiped out. Entire families just taken off the map. And African slavery and what that did to ruin entire generations, to literally rip them away and apart and to reconstruct them against their will. That's what I think of specifically when I think of westernization, is the Americas and what that did. But if you look further back to the British and what the British did, the British walked so that the Americans could run. The amount of colonization and proselytization, specifically through Christianity, that the British were responsible for. They were the pioneers of that. Yes. And I should give the Dutch credit where the credit is due. The Dutch definitely helped with the spread of the African slaves, the Atlantic slave trade. Every single culture, every single nation of people has done some form of slavery. That's an inescapable historical fact. People being stripped away of their rights and privileges and being forced to do things that they weren't prone to doing with little to no benefit of their own. You can see it in history. It's inescapable, it's unavoidable, it's there. But to what extreme, I think, is what makes it notable. you see less of it the further into a nation's history. With the Americas being so much newer on the world stage, our closeness to that historical point of slavery is much shorter than other countries and other cultures. We have people who still experience a form of slavery to this day, like the prison state, if you will, the way Americans specifically treat prisoners is a kind of slavery. This is a lot of stuff, a lot of really heavy stuff that probably deserves a lot more attention than what I currently am giving it. And I feel like I am not as qualified as other people when it comes to this kind of stuff. A lot of what I know is stuff that I've learned secondhand from other people who are very passionate about these things. But I can definitely speak as someone who was formerly Christian, learning as much as I did about Christianity and how much of it has been quietly pretended like it doesn't exist. Like, oh, that was a different time. We're better now. Like, that's not how that works. You can't deny history, because by denying it, you are not giving the people that were harmed the respect. Which flavor of Christianity? Oh boy. My parents, both of my parents, were born and raised Catholic. I think, if I remember correctly, my mother's family was briefly Lutheran, or had considered Lutheran Christianity, but they ultimately went back to and stayed in Catholicism. That is a very loud plane. I'm sorry if you can hear that. I don't know as much about my paternal family, because I didn't grow up with them. My male parent, because he doesn't deserve the title other than that, moved away from his family in his 20s and then never really went back. So I don't know any of that family. I grew up with my mother's family. I grew up with my cousins maternally. So, and was confused Roman Catholic. I practice Catholicism to a certain age. I want to say third grade is probably where we stopped being Catholic and went on to do a form of charismatic Christianity. And if you don't know anything about charismatic Christianity, it's the kind of Christianity that you see on TV, with huge crowds and very loud pastors who usually have a mic attached to them, and do things like speak in gibberish and fall down and sing really loud group songs together and all this other like healing hands and shit like that. Stuff that you do not see in Catholicism. That's the kind of Christianity that my parents eventually gravitated towards. And I would argue and say that it was more that it was my male parent who gravitated towards that, and my mother was dragged along for the ride. Yeah, they still practice Christianity, but it is distorted significantly, I would say. It becomes very interpretive Christianity. And it is a very dominant form practiced in the United States. a lot of, and not only that, but there are these types of charismatic Christians who just call themselves Christian, but they don't follow any sort of structure as certain types. My parents' flavor of charismatic Christianity was called Foursquare, and I will see if I can find the exact definition of that so that you can have a better idea. Denomination, that was the word I was looking for. Give me just a second. There we go. Pentecostal. It is an evangelical Pentecostal Christian denomination. That was the structure. We still did all of the exactly interpreted for gain. We still did all of the Christian holidays. So Christmas, Easter, shit, I'm forgetting them. Christmas and Easter are the two big ones. But we didn't do anything like the Assumption of Mary and stuff like that, because when you start to treat Mary a certain way, then it starts to become a form of idolatry. Blah de blah de blah. That kind of shit is very common in Episcopalianism, which is like the root of the denomination that houses evangelicalism. Mary isn't given the kind of importance that she can be in Catholic denomination of Christianity, Catholicism as the denomination. Crap. I am so far removed from from the practice that my parents had that I'm honestly forgetting some of these things. It's been like decades for me. Here we go. So, from my understanding, from what I remember from childhood, no, not the way it's observed in Catholicism. We did not do Advent. We did not do Epiphany. We did not do Lent or Ash Wednesday. We did do Good Friday, but it wasn't identified as Good Friday. And we did do Pentecost, but it wasn't called Pentecost. It was all part of Easter. Like Good Friday to Pentecost was all just Easter. So that's what I remember anyway, as a kid growing up. And Epiphany was part of Christmas, and Advent was part of Christmas. Like the individual rituals that were directly attached to Christmas and Easter were not observed. They were all part of just Christmas and Easter, and that was it. And pulling up like the proper pull-up. All Saints Day, we didn't do anything with regard to that. The saints were not part of evangelicism the same way. Palm Sunday, again, was not really a thing. I don't really remember anything directly attached to this idea of Jesus into Jerusalem other than like studying biblical texts. There wasn't any sort of practiced ritual around it the same way there was in Catholicism. And I was too young. Yeah, I was too young also to remember a lot of these very specific things. Like, children don't really do Lent. The same way children don't necessarily do Shabbat. It is something that is observed after you've had your bar mitzvah and your bat mitzvah. Those are that's the time when you start to observe these very adult rituals. So a lot of those things I didn't grow up experiencing. And I don't necessarily know if my cousins are practicing Catholics or if they haven't gone and done their own thing, because I don't communicate with my adult cousins anymore. After I moved away, we kind of grew apart in that regard. Welcome back from the ads. Children didn't do a lot of these rituals, and I was a child when a lot of these rituals, Catholic rituals anyway, the stuff that I was exposed to, I was a child, so I didn't get to experience them. By the time I was in 4th or 5th grade, my parents had adopted evangelical or Episcopalian evangelical Episcopalianism. Like, my parents did that starting 4th, 5th grade. That's when that happened. So I stopped observing all of the Catholic oriented observed holidays. Islamic is the word. It's not Muslim. Muslim are the people. Islamic is the religion. Oh my God. I lost track of what I was saying. Damn. Theatrical Christianity. What a perfect way to put it, Sai. Oh my goodness. That is it. You put it in words that I had never really considered in that order before. Thank you. You have opened my mind to that possibility. We are so out of the Pomodoro now. We haven't even done the last 2 sessions. Oh boy, that's fine. I'm enjoying this conversation. It's good shit. I enjoy talking about this shit. I stopped participating in my parents' tradition when I... Yes! Theatrical Christianity was written in King James's Bible. That's crazy. I never really... Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't... And I know about those things, but I don't know that we studied those when I was a kid. I stopped practicing my parents' tradition when I was a 7th or 8th grader. So I was 12 or 13. The King James Bible. I'll get to that in a second. So I stopped practicing my parents' flavor of Christianity when I was 11 or 12, between 11 and 13. And I remember why. My grandfather, my maternal grandfather, had just died. Sigh. Oh my goodness. My maternal grandfather had just passed away. And I had learned enough about who he had been as an adult from my mother. And how much of that conflicted with the man that I knew to be my grandfather. We'll talk about that in a sec, Sai. When I was presented with the idea that my grandfather had just died and possibly was a bad person and would possibly suffer punishment for the rest of his life, or excuse me, the rest of his death, when presented with that idea, I was deeply troubled. And that is when I stopped identifying with that belief system. That's when that stopped for me. I didn't feel comfortable doing that anymore. I had already started looking into other things, trying to feel what felt right to me. And a lot of what I was doing as a young person was trying to figure out what felt right. I knew a lot of things that came naturally to me. And a lot of that had to do with what people would call paganism. I definitely studied Wicca as kind of a gateway to paganism because it was very... Yeah. I don't know. In Catholicism, yes. In Catholicism, that is a thing that you do. You go through atonement and you progress into heaven. But in evangelical Christianity, that doesn't exist. When you die and you go to hell, you stay there. And that's it. And when I thought about that, when it was presented to my young mind, my brain broke over it. I couldn't get past it. And it deeply unsettled me. And that was the end of that for me. And unfortunately, the fact that I knew what I knew about my grandfather and the stuff he had done is part of the trauma of my upbringing, because these are things that a child... I know, I'm right with you there, Sai. Learning some of these things as a child, I was not in the mindset to be presented with these very grown-up adult concepts and ideas. It wasn't age appropriate of me to learn some of the things that I learned. I didn't have the mental fortitude or capacity to understand. Like trying to explain murder to a child, to like a 7-year-old, or even someone choosing not to live anymore. These were things that I learned way earlier than I probably needed to know them, and became deeply conflicted ideas to me. I was... How old was I? I was like, I want to say I was 9 when I learned about my paternal grandfather being hit and killed in a car accident. And I didn't really know what to do with that. Like, that was one of the first real experiences with death I had ever had. outside of like a pet dying, like a family member dying directly. And I never really even knew the man, except for a couple times I met him as a young person. But also, I didn't really know about him through stories being shared by my male parent, because my male parent just didn't talk about any of that family to me. I don't know anything about that family, like the way he grew up, with his brothers, with his dad, with his mom, with his stepmom, with his stepmom's daughter. I didn't even know that I had a step aunt. I didn't even know she existed, because that was just stuff that wasn't shared to me. But then suddenly I'm told that my paternal grandfather died, and seeing my male parent just be like distraught about it, not knowing how to help or what to say or anything. I think I was a late teenager when I found out that one of my half-uncles, my paternal half-uncles, elected to no longer exist. And having to discuss with my male parent how he wasn't gonna go to hell for that. And my male parent being like kind of stuck, wanting to think, yes, he would go to hell, because that's what the teachings of evangelical Christianity do. When you commit that act, you go to hell and you stay there forever. That's why you shouldn't do it, because you'll go there and you'll stay there forever. In evangelical Christianity, it's ridiculous. It's like they don't even read entire sections of the Bible. They just force these beliefs onto people and then expect them to be okay with those beliefs, and to not really look at it themselves or to understand it themselves. They, as a tradition, they like deeply disregarded Catholicism and all of those direct lessons taught there. They were like, no, this isn't the right way to do this. We're not even going to take into consideration these entire parts of the Bible, because they're directly linked to Catholic belief systems that we don't agree with. They basically wrote their own version of the Bible. That's what I mean when I say the King James Version, because the King James Version of the Bible, if I remember correctly, was the first Bible written in English. I'm going to double check that. Yes, okay. I love this. Yeah, not the right way when it was tried and tested over 1,000 years or so. Yeah. The King James Bible, also referred to as the King James Version or the Authorized Version, is an early modern English translation of the Christian Bible for the Church of England and the Church of Scotland, which was commissioned in 1604 and published in 1611 and sponsored by King James VI and I. 80 books of the King James Version include 39 books of the Old Testament, 14 books of Apocrypha, and the 27 books of the New Testament. And this is the version that the Puritans used. And when the Puritans came to North America and settled and founded here, that was what was primarily taught for the people who founded America colonially. From there things evolved. And that's more religious history stuff that I don't have as strong of a touchstone talking about. Because the British are the ones who colonized North America, and the founding of the no, it's not. Revised versions of it. The versions that are used now are based off of the King James version. The King James version is the British Bible. And it is a Bible that is directly tied to the English language. I would have to look at the historical history part. Really? That's how you're gonna put it? I would have to look at the timeline of the history of the Bible to find out which forms were used by which traditions and sects of Christianity and Catholicism, because like the King James Bible was the one that my Catholic family used. So I wouldn't even say that it's an American thing necessarily, because my grandparents, my maternal grandparents practiced Catholicism, the same Catholicism that is based out of Rome, Italy, with the Pope and all of that shit. One of my uncles converted to baptism, or baptism? Baptist. He converted to Baptist, which is another form of evangelical style Christianity. Denomination. Again, I know the fucking word, I swear. Baptists. I'm trying to find the history of Baptists. Baptists appeared in the American colonies in the early 17th century, along with settlers from England and Wales. It looks like is directly tied to Arminian doctrine and some Calvinist doctrine. So, denominations. Yes, exactly. The King James version was one of the first big English translations of the Bible. And the same way the Catholics and the Greek Orthodox split, because the Greeks had their version and the Italians had their version. And in both cases, like, they came from the Hebrew and the Aramaic. The Greeks were another colonizing nation that took their version of Christianity and spread it, and they got their Bible from Hebrew. If you want to look at the historical, like, timeline of who got what version of the Bible and when. And then all of the different branches of denominations and why they broke off and who was the pivotal person. Evangelicalism comes directly from Protestant Christianity, and Protestant Christianity came from separating from Catholicism. So there's that line right there. But then at the same time that Protestantism was happening, Lutheranism was happening. Hi, Axel. How you doing? We're talking about Christianity for some silly reason. All of this to say that rituals don't belong to religion. Rituals belong to humans. No, that's something that even the author was trying to point out. And Protestants separated to be more simplistic and not fancy, but hey, look at your mega churches. What are you talking about specifically? Axel, you've come really late to the party, so we would have to really backtrack just to catch you up to where we're currently at. The whole point of talking about all of this is to say that, like I was saying, rituals do not belong to religion. Rituals belong to life. And Westerners, people who are part of the melting pot, specifically the American, basically different flavors of cults. Yes! You are 100% correct with that statement. I think it's important, like the author is saying, I think it's important to separate ritual from religion and reclaim it for existence and create meaning through ritual. Ritual doesn't have to be tied to religion, and it can exist. And it doesn't have to be cultish. Because, like, what a cult... Damn it, I have a can on my desk. A cult is just a group of people who practice a thing. And I'm probably being extremely simplistic about it. Because some would say, that cults are unusual and extreme. They practice strangeness. But honestly, it doesn't have to be unusual. It's any group of people who share a system of beliefs. Anybody who is not part of those system of beliefs are going to look at that group and say that they're weird. I mean, I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Well, then the book you were reading described a cult. Okay, sure, if you want to put it that way. I don't think that's at all what is actually being discussed in the book. We've only just barely cracked the cover. And I think there's going to be a lot more that's discussed in it. Because what the author has done is created a spiritual, not a religious, but a spiritual practice of meaning and substance and importance, specifically related to queerness and transgenderism, specifically, that has meaning and importance in a way that Christianity especially considers to be outrageous and wrong. And I think that's an important thing that the author has done to rejuvenate and inject importance. I know, I'm with you, Axel, I really am. To inject meaning and importance and that sort of thing into being queer. I think that's really important. Which spiritualism entry in the Wikipedia are you talking about? Sigh! Come on, Sigh. A cult can be 2 people. A cult can be 5,000 or more people. The term cult specifically refers to an organization of people who practice a set of beliefs. Occultism spiritualism entry. I'm struggling. I thought you were being not patronizing, but something else. I actually had a conversation about that with a fellow Christian, and they were just refusing to accept that our community is genuinely just another group of people. Because their spiritualism beliefs, yes. Imagine me having a crowd of more than 3 people in my chat and trying to struggle with all of these different thoughts at the same time. How do I even discuss this? How do I even posit this? Because this is something that I spend a lot of my own time thinking about privately. What I do, what I practice, what I believe. As I already went through with you, Sayed, like I had a personal disagreement with Christianity and chose to just stop doing that. And then I went off the rail and started to do other things. Well, I mean, I've studied this stuff, and it's funny how much they love to misquote the Bible. Correct. That's actually a big portion of what we've been talking about, because the original Bible never mentions anything about gay people. And you're not wrong with that either. A lot of the words they use, that they choose to use, are presented one way and then misrepresented another way. Sodomy, for example. Sodomy isn't just about 2 men having sex with each other. Sodomy can also be men and women having sex with each other in different ways. Sodomy is basically intercourse that doesn't result in having a baby. That's what sodomy is. So the fact that people are like, oh, gay people are against God's will, is a very big misinterpretation and mispresentation of what that whole lesson is supposed to teach. But also, I don't personally, something donkey. I don't personally find any importance in that lesson necessarily. Especially considering the fact that homosexuality specifically, which people directly attach to sodomy, homosexuality exists in nature. And Christianity, once again, the spread of these very big, important religious structures is deeply tied to the fact that it's meant to spread and convert those people. So having babies is an automatic, you're now part of our group. Converting other people is adding them to your group. As soon as those people don't do those things, you eliminate them. Therefore, they're not important. They don't exist anymore. They're not retracting from the group. That's how that works. That's how conversion and proselytization work. So when your religion is all about spreading your messages, getting everybody to agree with you, and if they don't agree with you, removing them and making them, posing them as being evil or villainous or vile or wrong. Where was I going with this? There was something very specific. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. But then, like, the fact that they're denying things that already exist. They don't even just exist in animals and other beings. Like the fact that we have microorganisms that reproduce single cells, like they're literally just making copies of themselves. And the fact that we have animals that have the ability to literally change gender in order to fulfill specific roles and keep their entire species alive. Like all of these things that are not tied to a god and a savior and a system of beliefs and practices that people are trying to enforce onto other people, in some cases against their will. Oh boy. Well, now, how I interpret the parts of the Bible that people use for these agendas are a selection of letters from Jesus' disciples to people in hopes of spreading his teachings more like their interpretations. Basically, out of context emails. Well, here's the thing. Jesus as a being, I say being, that's such a weird way of putting it. Jesus as a pivotal individual is what's changed, broke apart Jewish belief into something else. Because if you ask any Jewish person who Jesus is and was, and the importance of Jesus in their belief system, he was a man who taught really important lessons, but he wasn't the savior. He wasn't this person that he claimed to be. They don't give Jesus the weight that Christianity gives him. They don't subscribe to the New Testament. That is Christianity. What makes evangelicism so insidious is that it takes parts of the Old Testament, the parts of the Bible that belong to the Jewish faith, but only a small portion of that faith, because there's so many additional things attached to Jewish belief systems that aren't just the Old Testament. They took the Old Testament and attached it to Jesus's teachings and the New Testament and all of those additional things, and then made their own religion. Like, okay, how is that not a cult? Islamic religion, their savior wasn't Jesus, their savior was Muhammad. They made their own system of beliefs based on the teachings of this man. Christianity doesn't see Muhammad as having the same importance as Jesus. They don't deny that Muhammad didn't exist the same way the Jews don't deny that Jesus exists, but he's their version of an important figure in their system of beliefs. So to Christians and to Jews, Islam is a cult. Anything that isn't the main belief system of that particular group is a cult. That's how people see cults. You could argue that religion as a practice, as a thing that exists, is cult-ish. Like, that's a whole argument. That's a big argument, in fact, that a lot of atheists have. And me, as a person who doesn't subscribe to Christianity, yes, I have, Axel. I don't subscribe to Christianity. I don't prescribe to Islam. I don't prescribed to Judaism, or Abrahamic religion, to be more specific in general, I find my fulfillment in spiritualism as the movement, as the philosophy. I find importance and fulfillment observing nature and the seasons and the planetary movements and the patterns of death all the way through life and all of these additional things. I find those things to be more fulfilling to me than all of these stories that are passed on from dead cultures and dead beliefs, people that were practiced thousands of years ago that are no longer relevant anymore. With the way we exist in a society, it's like trying to force people to take a big step backward and to only focus on the stuff that was and not the stuff that is anymore. Basically, what I'm trying to say is the Gospels are pretty normal. The other DLCs are unhinged with some good meanings teaching sprinkled in. Oh, Sai. I appreciate you. I appreciate you so much, Sai. You're really wonderful. Axel, I would be so happy to continue to provide you with all of this additional information that maybe you haven't been exposed to. Considering our age gap, I know quite a bit, and I probably might be one of the only people you've been exposed to who's willing to give you respect to teach you things that maybe you aren't being allowed to learn because of the restrictions of some of the people that you are having to be exposed to. As another person who is non-binary, like, I feel like you and I have a lot on the same page, and you're just at an earlier stage of living than me. History is really important to me. Yes, and that is part of the reason that we're reading the book that we're reading, which I definitely want to continue to read, and I will be reading again very, very shortly, like soon, like maybe in the next day or two, because I want to keep reading. I want to read this book. If it bothers you, Sai, that's unfortunate. I would really love you to stick around, because I think that the stuff that the author is trying to express and convey is really relevant. Super, super relevant. Also, though, we've been live now for over 3 hours. I'm trying to keep it lighthearted, as the epistles are usually, from what I've read of them, are kind of off topic. Yeah. Awesome, Axel. That's great. We're gonna find somebody to raid. Give me just a second to figure out who would be a good one. Oh, my mouth is so fucking dry. I see a couple people that are readers that are live. We've got Snooze Button. We've got Moog. We've got Arthur Irving. We've got Jev and Alan. That's a lot of choices. I'm not against listening to this book. Good. I'm glad. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Axel. It's important to stay hydrated. I really hope that we can continue to have this conversation as we continue to read this book together. I love Alan so much. I'm gonna raid us into Alan. So that's what we gonna do. Give me a sec. There we go. screen. The screen. There we go. There we go. Weird post-Soviet so stoicism. Oh my god. I'm not going to sing the song this time. My throat kind of hurts. I feel like singing is probably going to stress me out. So I am going to go through my last words, and then we are going to head on our way. I want you all to remember to please hydrate. Drink some fluid that is hydrating to you. Take your meds. Hug some, drink your meds. Drink some water. Take your meds. Go outside if you get a chance. And if you have any furry, feathery, or scaly friends, please make sure to give them a hug and kiss from me. We're going to go into Alan's stream now. Please join me as we go there. And I will see you all very soon. Take care.